Jimny Tindola Nidara Nanda Rabasalawe Chinye Dungun Chishin Sencher Nyingi Tugara Le Pamzin Kanda Sebi Zunrara Mari Muntum Dung Halange Sirwe Zhuo Gong Lai Pu Chi Tara Tse Yan Lai Zhu Qu Yang Tian Song Zhu Darai Cher Zhu Nyun Mo Nin Lo Le Jie Chang Zhu Chou Tse Jing Ma Re Mun Se Le Dung Lai Nyun Gu Chi Nye Chun Tse Ral Ti Nam Dune Da Jin Sang Chu Tar Sun Yun Den Lu Zo Jiao Se Tu Hui Gu Chu Chai Chu Dan Ju Nye Gen Che Da Lu Mun Se Jian Bi Yang La Tu Om Arabazana de 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 Marabazana de Marabazana de Marabazana de Om Arabazana de Ceden Ceden Chen Rama Ursere Jen Talu Temo Membara Salani Kadang ten je shung lu dong pa yi lu zhe pu pe nang wa ca lan du so kang ce ta wa ran de pa ham chung se che wa ra de na yang guan bo jam yang de ni ne ke me pan yang tong wa shou 인제 주무들의 님의 신수는 말람 침부 막자 답을 배가다랑한 천도 실면도 덤바통제 천라 차차로 운전 손롱 배매 동보래 열외 남주 정신 흔계 조 천도 배제 연된 초바로와 배마 중년 당뢰배 저로의 경 루죽 통매 아리아 대왕당 인년 총랑 중계 자외샤 연된 연단 상계 연랑소 견주 총인 남라 소로와 대배 마위 생계 관계를 비며 세들 롱내 상생 군생 경 정배 빠져도 두즈리 군년 바롱숨 최기 상보 잘 교로엔지 강대 되어가라든지 닝병 걸로 연된 군중가 위 계차로도 닝배 된도 베베 나저로 봐 롱친 ram점 샵라 솔로와 대외 렉동 정벌이 쉬는 진람내 공비롱내 보배 대결로 농도 저준 경송 왕주로 미범점 영남자라 솔로와 대배 홍민 최지 인계 포정내 무슨 성제 군지 모nye 랑숨 최고로 무슨 던제 바 자외라미 샵라 솔로와 대배 대양 조와 남기 타단 연배 심전 탐제 동아리 군대 니당 잘대 톱자 난남에 바양다 버도 비 상제지 고방 림보체라 고바라 기wo 디체도 담비추 되니 선전 출신도 냠수 렘바라 기wo 냠보 상바 창주 초도 토게 바림보체 살다베 권네 선바슈 강 선바차위 추게 림바네 케비 출라 주게시 주게 고셰 차위 땡주 되니레 딜라 양 되니 케바라 차위 네주 되니 추게 dom시 소소 양답베 릭바시 되니 권네 숭게 요발레 되니 당보 케비 네주 갑라레 케비 네주 딜라 양 되니 케빈네 주나네 당보 풍보라 케바스 풍보델라 양 에나 수기 풍보당 소리 풍보당 두시기 풍보당 두제기 풍보당 넘버 10이 풍보세네 진정아 예배 낭네 두제기 풍보 갑라 레데여 두제기 풍보델라 양 두제 심 조심당 총딘도 유럽에 최 직당 조심당 총딘 마인바에게 최 된데다 두제선 총딘기 두제당 총딘 마인비 두제 총된기 두제세나 조셈데라 총바르 덴베기 최되는 심중 응압주 응아지 있습니다. 데려는 디남네드네 군동아다 융행아 아니 계심 축제당 산윤 독스 다된조 슈세네 데네 데령 니는 니슈니
At the beginning of class, please give rise to bodhicitta, thinking, may all sentient beings who are as numerous as the sky is vast attain a state that is free of suffering and the causes for suffering. And may I be able to establish all these sentient beings at the level of perfect and complete awakening, the state of perfect Buddhahood, the ultimate result. And in order to do so, may I now study and put the teachings correctly into practice. With that kind of motivation, please listen to the teachings. The text that we're studying in this class is the treatise entitled The Gate for Entering the Way of a Pandita, or The Gateway to Knowledge by Mipam Rinpoche. And the text is structured by 3 topics. The first one are the 10 topics of expertise, the second are the 4 seals of Dharma, and the third one is then the 4-fold correct discrimination. We're currently discussing the 10 topics of expertise, and within these 10 topics, we are currently discussing the first one, the aggregates. The topic of the aggregates can be divided into 5 aggregates. The aggregate of form, the aggregate of sensation, the aggregate of perceptions, the aggregate of formations, and the aggregate of consciousness. And now we're discussing the 4th one of those, the aggregate of formations. Formations include 2 types of formations. First, the formations that are concurrent with the main mind, so that come along with the main mind, and then non-concurrent formations that are not concurrent, do not come along with states of the main mind. And we're currently discussing the concurrent formations, which includes the discussion, or is the discussion of the 51 mental states. Within those, we have covered already the 5 ever-present mental states, the 5 object-determining mental states, and also the 11 virtuous mental states and the 6 root disturbing emotions. And today we will come to the 20 subsidiary disturbing emotions.
네. 네, 당공 대화 가시시도 네 대화 대변나 심중된도 나저르게 ngokhala 간데 차대 유레스 깨져진 되네 심중 다 심중된도 네 가상변나 초르와이 갑라 초르와디 갑라 변나 아니 심바 템비 초르와당 아니 심바 매바 문중 땡기 초르와스네 근데 샤나서 다는 신게 데 심바 매바 문중 템비 초르와스인데 파비 나저바 된 적이 다 강아 간삼 나오시러와 인주 조데 파파르레 아니 벤나 류게 벤나 초르베 갑라 상승단 제비 초르와지당 상승 매비 초르와스네 근데 제가 깨져시 lep스노 디인두 다 나저바 이 벤나 초르와 된조라 아니 하장게 다가는 세파 차파 매비 보내 스네 딘데식당 아니 하장기 되는 라베 지 세밤 차과 숙충부 매비 보내 차과 매비 보내던 딘데스니 초르반 딘데스니 초르반 되게 용당되고 딘데 요래스니 숨는 신기 전에 다 심중 현된줄라양 다 짐바 하장 숙충부 매비 보내 다 딘데 인도 다디 람데양 나줄 봐슈나 interest.
We had a few questions that came up yesterday. And the first one was with regard to the mental states and specifically the ever-present mental states and how they relate to the experience of yogic direct perception. So in the direct perception of meditative equipoise of a yogi, then how do these mental states relate to that? And we saw that a little bit when we were discussing sensation, actually. Some divisions of sensations where these turbulent sensations concurrent with physical craving and sensations free from turbulence which are not concurrent with craving. And then also the sensations that support clinging and are concurrent with craving for the 5 sense pleasures, and sensations that support deliverance and are free from clinging. And so we divided, or we classified sensations actually in light of the different beings that experience them. So, or whether or not the sensation functions as a basis for craving, and that's for ordinary beings, or whether it's these sensations are not supporting craving. And when there's no craving, when there's no attachment that results from the sensations, then this is what we speak about in the perception or in the experience of noble beings in particular, or just generally yogic direct perception could fall into that category. So for the yogic experience of sensation, there's no attachment and no craving that is based on those sensations. So sensations are experienced, but they don't function as the basis for craving and so on. So if there's no craving that is developed towards the object, when there's no attachment or desire for the experienced objects based on the sensation, then, and also no aversion, of course, then that is the yogic sensation, compared to the sensation of the ordinary being, where the pleasant experience, for example, generates then craving and attachment to the sense object that is experienced. So the difference lies in the way that this is experienced. And there is this difference in whether the sensation leads to craving or not. And that's the difference. And that's also the difference then for the other mental states. It's whether there is grasping involved, or whether these mental states lead to stronger and stronger grasping to the object of experience, the cognized object, or not.
네, 지와 같이 나저pat 예 간다스나 율링가 데 갑라 간다스니 나저베 모갈라 샤고레스 데데 숨기도 다 율링가 데 듬바 메바 템바 띵징 시랍스 율링가 데나 나저바 침비 파롤 침발라 준비 망고치 난데나 듬바 쉐바 데니 데니 가위 남바스 아니 도남 제와 도남 되니르게 남바 아 덴데 임베 다 짐바다 땅에라 빼 가능 침보당 짐바라 도남 침보 뭐 덴데스네 베줄 준비 망고 지게레스네 둠바스네 덴 나주르바데 다나시 딱 묘바데 갑라 니바 묘바데 데네 짐비 파르 침발라 나주바데 빼나 짐비 파르 침나 냠레남 데나 네 짐바 땅에 데라페 가능 침보 레가 디레 아니 레가 셴 된조라 셈 마테와 레가 셴 된조기 게 삼로 된조기 톡 미투바 도와 레가 다랑 짐바 땅에 다랑 라페 가능 침보 다 짐바 데 마땅나 자와 니니 데사 마랭에 다 짐바 땅 거도 로 삼네페 데네 저와데 데네 삼로 셴게 왕둘라 마땅 당에 짐바다한테 참 샤고면은 나 딘데기 삼도 자원이네요 말이다. 묘바스리가 짐바데 다 마당 자원이네 제미동이 짐바데 인지미지 땅고도 스타디 빼면서 개침보제를 쓰네. 딘데스네 묘바스 젬바스다 나랑서 젬바메체와 짐비 유연된된 조당 짐바 땅출 안에 표현당 디네 마당의 예밍 된저 탐제 템바 마체와 양양 셈라 쌈네 되는 템바스 나주바디 단다 베남 야 유명한 나는 템바스 다 띵징스나 다 제직도 되네 짐바 땅의 이게 삼로레 삼로 셴 매용과 짐바 냠네 나의 간다 베나 짐바 땅사 땅케 땅자게 된저기 유울된 저 레경 안에 삼로 신라 마영와 짐바 땅출당 짐바 땅당 된저 간데 임바디 라렌 된저라 출신도 로데와 심딜레 마영와 체는 띵엔 센스티니 시랍 되네 짐바 땅출 간데 임바 짐바 땅나 표현 간데 요바 어딘데 시에비 차대로와 하고이 차대 어딘데스네 나주바 된저 답에나 제 된데게 람기림바 강다 강유나 양 다딘데 오 딘데스네 단다 짐발라 잡아나 신인 정치니 딘데스 메나 삼삼나지
And a related question to that, or the extension of this question then, was regarding the five object determining mental states and how those relate to the practitioners or to the yogics experience. And so the five object determining mental states are intention, interest, recollection, concentration, and discrimination. And those are especially important for the yogi actually, because they facilitate the engagement in the practice in these different ways. So one develops first an intention to practice on whichever stage of the path one is on, whatever practice one might have to practice, and then through that initial interest, the liking of that or thinking of the value of that practice, then one will start to engage in the practice. So based on that, then one will engage mentally with the practice and put it into practice. When we take, for example, the practice of generosity, when a practitioner thinks, oh, generosity is really something I need to practice, it's something very beneficial, it's something very good, I think this is something great, then first the yogi develops this intention to practice generosity, the strong intention, this inclination towards generosity, the wish to practice generosity, and that lets the yogi engage his mind in that topic. And then this interest, the second of the object determining mental states, then refers to the fact that through the liking, through the positive attitude towards generosity, then the practitioner determines that it is absolutely necessary for them to practice generosity, that and this lets them not be distracted or sidetracked by any other practice, by any other topic. So nothing can take them away from the practice of generosity with this strong interest. So it's a thought, I really need to practice generosity. It's indispensable for me to engage in the practice of generosity. And so I really need to do it. Then recollection is the fact that the yogi will not forget the qualities of generosity or the way how to practice generosity, all the different benefits that come from generosity, or the faults of failing to practice generosity. So the not forgetting all the different aspects and so on of generosity is then recollection or mindfulness. And then we have concentration. This is the mental state of not being distracted, never getting distracted from the practice of generosity. So one correctly practices generosity as the object of one's practice with the keeping in mind how generosity is practiced, who something is given to, and so on. So it's the one-pointed correct practice of generosity without being distracted by other things. And then discrimination refers to the fact that the yogi knows exactly how to practice. The aspect of having discerned what the practice of generosity is and what its qualities are, what the faults of not doing so are, and so on. So having really fully discerned the practice of generosity, what it is about, how to do it, and having full clarity about or knowing thoroughly what generosity is and how to practice it. So no matter what the practice of a yogi might be, all of these object determining mental states are essential, are part of that practice as according to the stage of practice and the practice that they want to engage in or that they engage in. Also?
네. 양 저와직도 세시 렉바스 가인나스나 박여 지 박여 유나 아니 랑도르게 내라 섭섭치니 흘림베 세시 렉바스 시바 감송 코르바단 시비 렉비차 연된 탐제 두투기레스 시바기 아니 랑도르게 내라 섭섭치 통나 박여 유나 네 미게와 덴조 빵 개와 좁치나 시바 감송 코르바기 토리기 고방 톱톱 롱주 첨보 야 첨보 되네 속 세단 덴바 속 천인 창화 되네 담배 최단 달 담배 최단 체도바 된데 시바기 다 시와기 연된 덴조 공리 공도 최 주변 덴조 공리 공도 로토에다 마세비 되네 타르바 상지 고방 톱투에 디 민라다 시바기 렉비 차당 시와기 렉비 차스 시와 렉비 차스는 시와기 최기지 최기 된다든지 하고에다 최기 남주에 된저 공리 공도 줘야 된저 민라 시위 렉바
시바 토리 나티니 빨 분순 소바 토리기 빨 분순 소바 토바다 시비 레바 시시 레바 된조 탐제 바외 요나 주티비 요스 순간이스.
Another question was regarding the mentioning of the excellence of existence and peace in the context of conscientiousness. It said here that in paragraph 1.48, conscientiousness is the earnest application of care concerning what should be adopted and what should be abandoned. Its function is to accomplish the excellence of existence and quintessence, samsara and nirvana. So this was speaking about the fact that if we know how to, if we earnestly and carefully apply the principles of what has to be adopted and what has to be abandoned, and then and accordingly practice virtue and refrain from any kind of non-virtue, then this functions as the cause for all goodness, for all excellence, both in samsara and nirvana. The excellence of existence refers to the fact that virtuous practice leads to the rebirth in higher realms, that one will experience a lot of enjoyment, a lot of joy and well-being in samsara. One will have a long and healthy life, good rebirth in general, or in the higher realms specifically, with all the features of a nice rebirth, from one's appearance to one's health and so on. So that's all referring to the excellence within samsara, the goodness or the excellence in samsara that comes from practicing virtue. Also that one meets with the Dharma and gets to practice the Dharma when one is still in samsara. That's also an excellence of samsara, in samsara. So having those good, fortunate circumstances. And the excellence of nirvana, or the ultimate excellence, the excellence of peace, or quintessence, then is the gradual progression towards perfect and complete enlightenment. So practicing virtue with conscientiousness, carefully implementing the principles of practicing virtue and avoiding non-virtue, leads to the ultimate result of perfect and complete awakening. And so everything that leads up to that falls into the category of the excellence of nirvana. So everything that is part of the progression, the gradual process of practicing the Dhamma and becoming liberated, moving towards the ultimate goal. That's the excellence of peace, or the goodness of the ultimate goal. And so the two terms here, the excellence of existence and the excellence of peace, really refer to that which leads towards higher rebirths, or to higher rebirth, good experiences, and so on. And the excellence of peace refers to that which is world transcending.
네, 디젤라 셰당 메바당 남세 메바 시와데 간데레스네 딜레송 셰당 메바 셰바데네 아니 동알기 쳬라 꾸니 나르세 메바데 숭아나다 동알기 아니 나르세 메 녜쳬라 미주바르 쳬바오스 셴라 동알와 중에게 쳬도라 데네 마 소바당 천자 육바 아니 다 잡침부 내가 된저 미지비 차들라 아니 내가 인가 차우 된저 천자 육에당 마 소에당 세에당 나서가 된데 미지바기 차들라 시당 메바스 되네 넘버 미체와 되는 시당 미비 차도 바스 시당 미비 차실로 또 받아야 되는 조대 닝제기 셈도지레스네 틀렸습니다. 디다 beja korong nangla tene tsewa gi number shukchumbo do temba do ji ane number tsewa me ba sing de ta chidang ge de chunjam mi yupa tene ma me so ba de ge chala kongdo chidang mare chidang ge karasena shen den zo kibu yabo yona yabo re dilangi neba ke minyen sambe kone de do shen junor paljur chimbo yoba shen ane kanpal phunsun chokwa na den zo yabo re dene samne den zo la neba ke minyen samne ta chi sabsabchine chi subar komne dene 다 콘도 야보요나 기보요나 야보레 삼네 대신라 네바 마게 와치네 되기도 와 어딘도 차드라우지 닝제기 셈도시 뭐 직디 조처 작고도지도 도서 가르 셰당성인데 예절라 미죽바 제바오스네 슝코롱 난다 데데 천자 유와 땅 마소와 땅 세와 땅 데네 셰당 데네 숙침부 바로 요번에라 니바데 셴게 빨 분숨 초바 렉비 차 된조이나 된조랑 가족이 안에 베나 셴 베나 균노 롱절라서 빨 숙충보 여송나 된조라 셈 가능도 지비 보내 가동수 된조라 되는 네바께 닝게 말에 섬에 콘돌라다 빨 분숨 초바나 야고레 더 섬비 보내라 어디는 네바 메게와 대위 찾아오지
Another question then was what the difference between non-aggression and non-violence are. And the difference lies in the aspect of it. So we described non-aggression as not harming, not developing an intention to harm or not harming the and based on that not harming others that might have inflicted suffering upon us or that we don't like. So it says non-aggression is the absence of a hostile attitude towards a sentient being or an object that causes pain. It makes one not become involved with negative actions. So here specifically this non-aggression refers to the refraining from a harmful mind, from a mind that wishes to harm others based on some reasons. And so this refers to an intention to harm them in any way, to inflict wounds on them, to wield weapons against them, to kill other beings. So based on that intention, one will then refrain, like based on non-aggression, one will not engage in such actions. And so that's a very wrathful kind of explanation, right? It's quite a tough explanation to say that this is the harmful mind. It's the absence of a harmful mind that would be aggressive in the sense of physical aggression, like wish to physically harm or mentally harm other sentient beings. So it's the absence of that kind of aggression. Non-violence then is said to be an aspect of non-aggression, but it's a different angle that is taken or that is highlighted here. So non-violence is a compassionate attitude belonging to non-aggression. It functions to avoid causing harm to others. Here, the angle that is taken is that of the motivation of compassion. If one has the attitude of compassion, love for those beings, then one has this attitude. If those other beings are happy, if they are well, then that's good. I don't need to harm them in any ways. It's the appreciation for their well-being, for their enjoyment, for their wealth, and so on. And with a loving and compassionate attitude, not finding like then one doesn't find any cause to want to harm them. So no ill will, no hostile attitude will arise if one has this compassionate attitude. Towards other beings. And so it's also an aspect of non-aggression because it also prevents aggression, these hostile attitudes, and that it focuses on the aspect of compassion and love for those beings. So it's the wish, one doesn't have the wish to harm them if one thinks how good it is if they're happy, if one wishes them all the well-being, all the enjoyments, all the wealth that they could experience, and rejoices in what they have. So in this way, it takes a different angle. While non-aggression takes the angle of the avoidance or the absence of the aggression itself, then non-violence focuses on the aspect that non-aggression originates in the sense from the compassionate attitude towards sentient beings.
네, ngajal tun ji kola ji kande na tene sunu tatila tambo ngajal tun din na tambo ngajal sing ji dede tene yönden dang tene yönden dang tene tunor paljur la soba tamje susula yö sambe kone tene sem다 캥 대와다 셈 감네 대와다 yö sambato tene ngajal res 아니 디체라 니바데 아니 체위 ngajal ka hapi ngajal 네 hapi ngajal s나 당아조 다 8월 보든 조당 나조 다 저우저우레 이나양 교대 또스 나체 인소도 양나 남바데 또스 나 야가 인소도 다 간다라 양직 나가직 연된이나로 균을 좀 강제 토는 나가지 안에 지당당도 더우제데 이나양 나가지 당아도 야가래 도서 늘 학백 나절람 또 터바도지 나절 터바도 잘라지 터바지 무슨 지바도지 배차샤나 지당도 더우제데 교대 또 나체 연도 공존에 대한 나도 교축부인 나도 남바야고인 나도 고사 토와데 인 라오지 지단 아주 자오레데 이나 또 고네데 나도 토인 라오데 사배 만잘 쓰는데 암양나 치는 거 디레스 디네 나절레게 나절 쓰는데 안에 셴 케바르도 파바 남레 짱 안에 나랑 도단 케바르도 파바 미 베나 미 케바르도 파바 미 잠링 강라 또 강제 통에 빨 분순 소바야나 덴졸레장 또 야고인도 삼바 요 lep송나 디 나잘레장 나잘 레스네 수마레도 드네 나오 냠비 나잘데 드네 남균이 나조 찍디 나조 단다데 녀와링비 풍보데라 드네 나오 삼바 드네 나이 라파 나이 강바 나이 강바 나이 분체 라오치네 that is suma de mingla tene ngawanya be ngajal res
Listen. Another question was to elaborate on the 7 types of arrogance or pride. And we said that arrogance is the conceited attitude of superiority based on the belief in the transitory collections. It creates the basis for disrespecting others and for the occurrence of suffering. It can be divided into 7 types. What are then the 7 types? The first one is just simply pride, simple pride, which refers to the type of arrogance which just is being full of oneself because of one's qualities, one's wealth, one's status, one's education, and so on. So thinking I have all of these things, I am these things, just being arrogant because of that. That's this simple pride, the first type. Then greater pride, or the pride of being superior, is the second type of pride, and that refers to the pride in the context of being actually equal to others. When one has a peer group or is with people that one's actually fairly even with in most aspects, and one develops pride because of one thing or another that one is a little bit better in or has a better status than others, then this is this greater pride, or the pride of being superior. And that would then be to, for example, when one is fairly equal with everyone, then think, oh, but I'm a little bit superior because I have better looks. I am a little bit richer. I have a little bit more wealth than the others. I have a slightly higher status. I'm slightly better educated. So because of one aspect or another, to feel a sense of arrogance towards others that are generally equal to one is this second type of pride. The third pride is then exceeding pride, which is to think that one is better than those who are already really great. So if the others that one compares oneself to are very high in status and wealth and whatever aspect of life might be the basis for that comparison, to think, oh, but I'm still better than those. That is exceeding pride. I'm still superior to even those great ones. In one aspect or another. That is exceeding pride. And then the fourth pride is the pride of thinking I exist. And that refers to the pride that is taken on the basis of the appropriating aggregates. So grasping to the 5 aggregates as the self, then one develops the pride of I exist. And with that comes then the pride of everything that belongs to me. This is my house. This is my car. This is my family. These are my siblings. Developing pride to everything, about everything that is related to oneself, that belongs to the category of mine. That is then this pride of thinking I exist. With the I exist come also the idea of mine, and the pride that is taken in all of these things.
아니 랑레 시라게 개발도 파파 딘데 연나양 랑레 장 로종당 남바당 교노를 나서바당 최연된 강지톤의 시라게 개발도 파파 연나양 딜라 통네 아니 나 콜레 뇽뇽 치경바 나 중앙에서 할람마도 아주 더윈 더섬나 데 중세념빙 아니야 레스는 숨어 데네 로빙 아절 시와데네 데네 연된 마임발라 연된도 롬바 수소 이제 로종다우당 넘바다우당 근데 야고 많이 나양 또 야고 인도지 삼네데니 요도도지나 데 로빙 아절 레스 근데 숨어
Kenanda de Chungsum Nyungwa Dang
중세념빙 아절라스
조선인 ben ngagel dang lombe ngagel di chiku lapsonga. Ngaba de
ngaba 강디 도라
ngaba khara dita da dukba dang tumba marabe. Dadong chik la doy.
다동
Dukma tog. Napa tog lama so.
단다 나잘 고 당보 직 나잘 신 조르와
Chik ngagel dang lagbe ngagel.
니 지나
Ni je.
아니 나잘 내자 나잘
Mhm.
ngawanyambe 나잘 시치 문비 나잘치 마치 중세nyambe 나잘치 족치 아니 록비 나잘
ngaba di khare sonso.
문비 나잘 오래 문비 나잘 오래 문비 나잘 데 라비메도 오래 문비 나잘 세와데 마토발로 토바오 냠바데 마토발레 토바오 냠바데 연된 연된 페나 페나 지 람기 연된 원도 된조 람기 냠렌 된조 마토브나양 토비로 삼나디 문비 나잘스
So we just had to clarify the the fifth one. So the fifth type of pride is blatant pride, and this refers to the arrogance of thinking one has qualities that one actually doesn't have. So for example, there are qualities that manifest from the practice on the paths or the traversion of the paths. And to think that one has these qualities while one actually doesn't have them, that's blatant pride or blatant arrogance. To think one has qualities that one actually does not possess. Then the sixth type of pride is the pride of thinking that one is slightly inferior. And slightly inferior, just slightly inferior to those who are actually truly great. So if there are people who are extremely exalted compared to oneself, so they're much richer, they have a much better education, they're much more beautiful, or whatever aspect we might consider, they're just there's a big difference between oneself and those. They are much exalted to oneself. And then to think, oh, I'm just slightly less wealthy than them. I'm just slightly less educated than them. While the difference is really great, actually. That is then the pride of thinking that one is just slightly inferior. And then the seventh type of pride is unfounded pride. So that really refers to Amala. Dumba di yanketa shigyamna.
Yes. Dumba di chi yundin mayin bala yundin dulumba lopin ngajal.
So the seventh kind of pride is this unfounded pride, and there one takes pride in something that is actually not something one should be proud about at all. So to be proud of something that is not a quality but rather a fault, that would be then this unfounded pride.
네, 가상대 잔윤 족 데 휴스네 다 잔윤 족에 남라 양결 다 빼나 따와들라 양 에와체네 샤나니 데네 심중대 납중 냥아 족이었으네 숭마라와 가상마마 따와들라
zanjun chuk nangla tani tawa de yore tama de la tawa de do tawa de badula shana simjung ngapchung ngache re yang tawa khorong la yang ewa chen shana tani simjung ngapchung nga chagi re sne odinde sungare di indu tani dila ewa chen shana tawa de la ena nga des ne zanjun chuki che la yang che tawa khorong la yang ewa chen sungyung do jikso la tawa ni nyawar lingbi phungbo nga la dakang dagi war tawa des kechi ki jikshin gyugen duma mangbo chokwa la tenne jikso dide phungbo de nga zo subu de kechi ki jikbi rangshin gyugen mangbo chokwa la tenne chungwe dati phungbo de la gyore jikso dila tawa sene jikso dila tawa sene kandes tagi lamna de nyawar limbi phungbo sakje nyawar limbi phungbo ngawo de la se ngarang jola subu ngarang jola chorwa duje namshe yore ondi ngabo de la ngao nyambas dakang se dila migne ro dila sakje nyawar limbi phungbo de tongne dila tane dila migne ane dile tane tene ngao tendesene samgido ondila tene taudans ane dagiri tawasena ngagi res ngagi lakare ngagi kangba ngagi khangba ngagi punche ngagi tobo tomo la soba o tendesene taudan dagiri tawa te sondi mingla jiksola tawa shenje ten cheba osne ta di tawa de tambongela ngar zimba do di tawa de yosongna tene tawa mangbo tamje ge shi do de ten de koi chigi dos tene tarsing ge tawa sing jere tar zimba ta chok la zimba 양나 딱비 chok la zimba 양나 chebi ta la zimba de takche ge ta la chok la zimbe tawa sing jere tanda de tawa de la enan jikchon la tawa dan che tarzing ki tawa dan ni se de tarzing ki tawa shiwa de kana da gam phungbo nga las 양나 소소 랑니 nga singin de na do 양나 소소기 phungbo 수기 phungbo chore phung tuji phung namar shibo phungbo nga bo de las tene tapara chi yore do chako demba ngone dinde du rau samne yo tato dutu tartu dinde china dinde mina tapar tawas dine di tarzingi tawas dine tapi thala zimbas dine ang chepara zimbas takpa dang chepara phungbo ngabo de dang nga sewa de dine to koron rangshin ge dang de korwa de la chungjores ta rangshin la zamling la ke de yore la ten samani de nga am yang na ngai phungbong nga ba de korang singeta mewa cha ro gres ta rang sing korong mewa cha ro gres ta korang sing mewa cha mela rode ne mela ta ane sem de ne namkala kasakala yel ro te tongba ro ka yo mare ro de samsung na o de chebar ta wa res de tarjing gi ta wa singinde ta kang phungbong nga la takpa dang chebar jimba des didi kanchigiresna didi yosona nadula ume lamge ngepar chungwala bharto chubi lejen nos ume lamse ume lamde takri chokla malung chebi chokla malung dine di tamjele dholwade ume lamre di ume lamde la ngepardo chungwa ume lamde la top gudu a ume lamde he gudu sambe gone tene di samlo kie jungirwa te umi lam singde kande na umi lam ha ko ko sene dente samye de la parche chigire la bre kanasna takbar ta wa dan chebe ta wel hala thungsong na umi lam la ne par chungala par to che baos par to che be leche nos tene di chela che sumba de lokpar ta wa sa loktas le tang le kewi julatene dewu ane dewa chungge yoba le migiwala tene dewu ane tungal chungge yoba so sarwa so nala tani ta demba shigi netang dodang dedorwa 제 교군중 녀몽바 된도라 때네 지우 동갈기 된바 중개요바 주 람기 된바 되라 때네 지우 고비 된바 중개요바 근데 레 준데 속에 여비 된데나 메파르타와 때에서 다 lokpa 생인데 아 단다 개와 사소나 치마 토리 토베스인지 여기 말했어 단다 미개와 사소나 제마 동강 용했는지 여기 말해 마시디 레 디게 진 디오딘데 용거스는 간데스 하고 그래 근데 여기 말로 신의 데레스네 삼송나 로퍼타와레스 모베네 술데레 레 준데기 랑신 임바직라 나노도 삼바데기 디하마고네 메레 삼잖아 모베네 술데다 마퉁바데 로퍼타와세 타와테 게자 쭈퍼치비 레젠노스 디게 안에 개와 두비에 딕바빵에 덴데기 제라 parche chigere keza chö parche be lechen nos
If we come back to our text now, yesterday we spoke about the six root disturbing emotions, and we concluded with belief or view being the sixth of the root disturbing emotions. At the very beginning of talking about the mental states, we said there are 51 mental states, but if we divide or separately discuss the 5 aspects of belief or view, then we will have a count of 55 mental states. So it's either 51 mental states if we summarize all the different views into the topic of view or belief, and we have 55 mental states if we explain them separately. And we said that we would see this explanation of describing them separately in the context of the root disturbing emotions, and specifically the sixth, the belief. And so now we are on page 26, and the from paragraph 1.66 on, we see actually this description. We will see the description of each of the 5 beliefs, the 5 beliefs that are the part of the belief as the root afflictive emotion, here spelled out. So the first one, it says here, when belief is subdivided, there are 5 types. The belief in the transitory collection is the belief in an I and a my within the 5 perpetuating aggregates. It forms the basis for the other unwholesome beliefs. So the first negative view, or the first mistaken view, the first type of afflicted belief is the belief in an I based on the transitory collections, the aggregates, the appropriating aggregates. So these aggregates are subject to disintegration. It's the coming together of many different things, but they momentarily disintegrate. So based on disintegrating, constantly disintegrating different parts, we the 5 aggregates arise. That's why they're called the transitory collections. They arise and momentarily cease. Now, the belief in these transitory collections refers to the belief in an I based on these transitory collections. So focusing on or observing the 5 aggregates, one believes in the existence of an I, of an self, of a person. So one looks at these conditioned, defiled aggregates, and those are the body, one's feelings or sensations, perceptions, formations, and consciousness, and thinks of them as I, as me. This is who I am. And in relation to that, then also comes the idea of mine, my hand, my foot, my house, my family, my parents, my friends. And so that is what is meant with the view of the transitory collections. All other mistaken or unwholesome views are based on this first fundamental misapprehension of the self, the focus of, or the view of the aggregates to referring to the I. And so that's really the view or the belief that is the basis and the support for all other beliefs, all other negative or misleading views. The second of the 5 beliefs is then the belief of holding extremes. The belief of holding extremes. And the belief of holding extremes means regarding the self or the 5 aggregates to be permanent or discontinuous. Its function is to hinder emancipation by means of the middle path. So when one holds the second type of view, or what does the second type of view refer to? It refers to the grasping to extreme views. These extreme views are then the extreme views of permanence or annihilation with regard to that self and the 5 aggregates. So when we talk of the extreme view of permanence, that refers to the idea that I and the aggregates are the aggregates are something that permanently exists, that it's something stable, something really existent, that's reliable and stable. So grasping to the aggregates or to the self to be this permanent, stable, truly existing thing, that's the view of permanence. And the view of annihilation or discontinuity then refers to the other extreme on that spectrum, thinking that there is no continuation. The aggregates come about and then at the end of life, so they come about at the beginning of life when one is born, and then at the end of life they disintegrate. There's nothing that continues. There's no mind stream that continues afterwards. Everything just comes into being and then disintegrates, and that's it. So that is meant with discontinuation here, that the aggregates just discontinue at the end of life, and there's no continuation at all. So they arise, the aggregates, in that kind of view, the aggregates arise naturally from the elements and then disintegrate, and that's really it. There's no further continuation, there's no further stream of being or anything. Nothing is left in the end. And so both of these views, the view of the self and the aggregates to be permanent, and the view that they discontinued, that the view of annihilation, they are actually obstacles to wanting to know and wanting to obtain the middle path. So the middle path is the path of not falling into either extreme of permanence and annihilation or discontinuity. And so if one holds either of these extreme views, then one doesn't endeavor in finding and abiding on this middle path. And so these extreme views are the obstacle for the obtainment, the thought that one wants to reach the middle path or understand the middle path or obtain it. And then the third kind of belief is then called here perverted beliefs. Perverted belief means regarding an existing fact as being non-existent. For instance, to disregard the cause and effect of actions. Its function is to cut the virtuous roots. Perverted beliefs then refers to the wrong view that things that are actually in place or principles that are true do not be true. So here it refers to the fact that one would not believe that virtuous actions actually lead to happiness, to the fact that, like, the belief that negative actions don't lead to suffering, to not understand the causal relationships between the Four Noble Truths. So not understanding that the truth of origination is the cause for suffering, the truth of suffering. They not understand or not believe that the truth of the path is the cause for the truth of cessation. And in general, just to not believe in karma cause and effect and the causal laws of karma cause and effect. So to think that it is not true that any rebirth in the higher realms depends on virtuous practice, and that one needs to abandon negativity for higher rebirth, for example. So thinking it's not like that. It's not like they explain with karma cause and effect. And to believe that these principles are not true. If one believes that, or if one doesn't believe in the principles of karma, cause, and effect, if one thinks that this is not valid, that these are not valid principles, then one will engage in anything, in any kind of action, because one does not one does not believe in the results of these actions. And therefore, the perverted views, the perverted beliefs actually create an obstacle to the practice of virtue and the avoidance of non-virtue.
따와 초진네 시와디 따와 초진네 네 공기 따와 님바 숨당스 직다 타르다 록다 대 숨보당 따와 디 탐제 중사기 내대 사제 니월 림비게 풍보 nga 소기 풍보 초래 풍보 두시 풍보 넘버 10 풍보 대 풍보 ngawo 되라 초당 담바르 따와 대 땅엔 넘버 10발 제바오 다디 따와 초선 딘데레는 네 공기 땅엔 숨보되라 안에 넘버 10발 제바스 공기 베나 직소라 따와 시와데 풍보되라 때는 나오스네 삼네 드네 마르진네 드네 마이 강바 라파 마이 옌예 코르스네 딘데 삼가 다디 따오 삼예 되라 빼 가능 침보치네 당문에 마요레 드네 마이 분자 마이 수고 마이 옌예들 스네 드네 빼 가능 침보치나 디 따와 총선레스나 네 니바데 페나 지 타르다스는 딱바로 따와다 쳬바로 따와 마요레스 마요 되네 분자 년년에 참제 여 자랑 거보도 참제 여 도삼 되나 아니 디 딱바 따와 따딜레페 가능체와 되네
딘조 탐제 그런 유메게메라 그런 랑싱기 중교래 선에 로라 대오라고 저 로라 베 셈라 숑긴도 딘조 문에레도 딘데 삼송나 쳐버다와 딘조 제마 그런 랑싱기 매와 차도기래 다 그런 남칸이 셈니 남칼라 팀도기래 수분이 되네 양나 추암 양나 매안 가능직라 짱네 매와 소여 샤기래 딘데도 삼된 딘조 로라 숑보도 예 딘조 딱 오늘 레도 선을 셈라 바보로 예송나 안데 타다라 초든지 마스 초든지 달로 록달라 초든지 마스 따와숨나 딱 심바라와 델타 록달라 심바스는 딱 레준데 요마레 생아치 요마레 개와치고 마레 대바방고 마레 딘데 람나 딘졸라페 로 대오도 지네 셈라 가능침보도 따디 문에 인사 레준데 요사마레 생아치 요사마레 딘데 삼 따딘데 되네 가능침보도 계속나 온데 따와 초sense 록달라 따와 초sense 따와 순당스 되네 풍보 다 수고데 자침보 개침보 제진 당진 약고치고레스는 따딘조데 따와 초sen당스 당일랑 몸바리 심바리 제바오스 된디단 양데 nga바데 출침당 뚫슈 초sen네세 따와 나나니 nga바데 출림 뚫슈 초sen승이데 데데 닥돌 마임비 출림 당선 다 출림 뚫슉 초선선라 출림 선나 가르스나 닥돌 마임바 덱바 닥에 당 아니 코로와데 돌에 딘데게네 출 마임바기 출림 딘데 요래라 이렇게 저래 변나 닥돌 마임비기 출림 변나 변나 지 맹아 템바도 맹아 땡고레 수불라 맹아 땡고레 샤르기 촌이 매 빠르 속이 촌이 매 빠르 누기 촌이 매 빠르 장기 촌이 매 빠르 땡네 니마기 짜고 주고래 수불라 네 수부데 나가모네 나랑 졸라 빼면서베게 코기 지니 랭이마 망고 쉬우지디 수불라 때네 중교래 따달래 수부데라 맹아 때네 때네 덱바 다도 주고래 때네 타르발라 돌와르 제르 주고래 삼바도데 데 조림 야차샤나 네, 수부디게 낙되게 깨쳐만고 시에나 예바만고 종기래 아니 되네 람네 되네 깨쳐만고 민마와 대게 줄임라고 땅 되네 수부데라 셴바 도게게 치둘라 빼나 미도 많이 받제 키도 치는 도고래 키그 좁아도 치는 도고래 도당당 깨자 셰당당 된서 세상 아니 발랑 당신 지고래서는 키다 발랑 아니 뚫슈스는 어딘데서는 다돌 많이 배 출림당 뚫슈스는 다 나랑 저 뚫세디가라 다 나랑 저미 좁아당 미 사마당 미 기자셰당 된저 좁아데 때니 차바만 거 깨겨래서 니데 파 뚫네 아니 키 좁아다올라 키도 지고래서 강라시 중니 되도 키 깨도 돼 발랑도 지네 발랑기 깨 자긴도 발랑기 좁아다오 지네 제다 키당 발랑기 뚫슈스나라 나랑 단다 미 좁아데 뚫네 아니 키다 발랑기 좁아라 슈와 뚫슈당 데네 풍몽아라 다돌 내진도 따와데스 이따오게 데 풍몽하고 데 레슨 뚫슈 초도라 되는데 가나 디파 다게레스 코르발레 조토게레스네 된데게 따와데라 나로 제부 메바라 집에 레전 되게 딱 깔래 경바레스 제우 톱토에 가나 메바게 레가 치기도 초생이보디 뭐베 출라 신조록도 주바데스 따와 초생 대당 출림도 초생이 되게 뭐빈네 출데라 단다 야강라 초생이 되게 진교능신 마인발라 아니 딱 그럼 따완이 되게 딱 인도도로 지내 심대인데 갈라 친지로도 주게도 따완이데 친지로도 주게 당연 당스 탑이 탑 따와 초근당 따와 초생당 남아되기로 다 제마데 출림도 주되게 뺐나 아니 탑이 탑 민비 람 님발라 아니 람 상고 인반이도 셴네 아니 dine shuk te do di chönbe tene shen lam mune mai bala lam yin bar jinde shimba chine lam gang da gang ba da tamje yang chön do es tawa nga bo te ta tamje shirap 저 사실이 과 셰빅이 단위 직다인데 이나양직 묘몽바 인나세 묘몽바세 지 셈시와 마인바라 셈 투비랑신 듀 투비랑신 듀 주보 셈 주비랑신 근데라 묘몽바체 인나스 그래서
Also. So first of all, for your attendance, my question is how many beliefs are there? So how many beliefs are we covering here? How many types of beliefs? And now we come to the next one. Of the 5 beliefs, we have now reached the 4th one. And here this is named holding a belief to be paramount. So grasping to one's belief to be supreme is the 4th belief. And this refers to thinking that any of the previous 3 views would be the supreme one, would be the correct and exalted view that one should uphold. So really being very attached to either of the first 3 kinds of belief. So for example, to think that this view of the 5 aggregates to be the self, to be supreme, to be the exalted, the sacred view, that is the first kind of belief in supremacy. And so one grasps to the first view, the view of the transitory collections, was referring to the fact that one grasps to the aggregates or grasps to a self based on the 5 aggregates. And so believing in an I, a self, then also leads to a belief in what is mine, what belongs to me, my family, my retinue, my belongings, and so on. So this includes the 2 aspects. This belief, the first kind of belief, refers to the 2 aspects of believing in an I and in mine based on the grasping to the 5 aggregates. And to think that this is the supreme view and really enjoying that, thinking that it's great, really liking that kind of view would be the first type of view of supremacy. Another supreme view that could be taken as supreme is then the second one that we covered, which was referring to the view of permanence or annihilation. So to think that the I exists and like permanently, really, and so would then all one's stuff, all belongings, and so on. To really like that view would be the view to take this kind of view as supreme, or the opposite, the view of annihilation, that things arise, like the aggregates arise and they cease and there's no continuation after death, that is just a temporary state that then falls into disintegration at the end, and there's no continuation afterwards. So to really like these kinds of views, and that there's either the self is permanent, the aggregates are permanent, stable, or to think that everything just ends with the disintegration of the body, with the disintegration of the elements when the body is burned or so cremated or put into water for water burial or any of these kinds of things. Then this is to really think that these views are supreme refers to the view of supremacy in light of this second type of view of extreme views. And then one can also have a strong attachment to the third kind of view, this perverted belief. The perverted belief that there is not such a thing as negative action, that negative actions do not lead to suffering. To really think, oh, there is no karma, cause and effect, there is no karmic law at all, and to really strongly be attached to that view. There's nothing that can shake one from that belief, and one is really attached, one really likes the view that there is no karma, cause and effect. So one thinks that the view of believing that there is no karma, cause and effect, there are no results of one's actions and so on, that this is really the supreme view, that is then to hold that kind of view as the supreme. So in each of these cases, the view is based on the self, and to take the view as being the supreme one, liking it so much and being very attached to those kinds of views and believing them to be the supreme view, while they're not the correct and supreme view, that is holding views as being supreme. The fifth and last of the five beliefs is then holding a discipline or ritual to be paramount, is to believe that a non-purifying or non-liberating discipline or ritual, as well as its basis, the five aggregates, is purifying, liberating, or capable of causing emancipation. Its function is to cause pointless hardship. So the last kind of belief is to believe that a ritual or discipline that isn't supreme, that isn't helpful, that isn't fulfilling that purpose does. So thinking of those as supreme. Examples for that would be, for example, a type of a fire ritual where the practitioner believes that by lighting fires in all the directions around the body, so having a fire in front and the back, to the right and to the left, or the cardinal directions, and also sitting in the bright sun, so having also heat from the top, would purify the negativities that one would engage in with one's body. So to purify all negativities through that physical suffering of being exposed to extreme heat by lighting fires and sitting in the hot sun. That is a mistaken, that is a ritual that does not fulfill that purpose and doesn't purify negativities. But people might be attached to that ritual and think that this is the supreme kind of ritual to purify negativities of the body. And so they grasp to that as the supreme one, while it's not. Another example, or some examples for discipline that is not purifying, not liberating, would be then to think that we engage in a lot of negativity based on our body and speech, and to refrain from those kinds of negativities, and in order to let go of all attachment that we have to our body, to then not engage in the behavior of a human, but to engage in the behavior of an animal, like a cow or a dog, and walking around and engaging in behavior just like, for example, a dog, eating like a dog, sleeping like a dog outside, and crawl, like going on 4 legs on the ground. So to really imitate the behavior of a dog instead of a human, to let go of the attachment to the human body, to the human existence, and to purify negativities of one's body and speech. That is also a type of discipline that is not actually functional. It's not fulfilling its purpose of liberating one from those kinds of negativities, purifying these negativities and liberating one from samsara, but it's just useless hardship. So that's the function of these wrong, these kinds of rituals. And when we hold these rituals or disciplines as supreme and think those are the very essence of what we have to do, then this just causes us to engage in meaningless activity, to pointless hardship. There's really no point in doing these things. They don't fulfill the purpose which we think they do have. So that is then to grasp to a ritual or discipline to be supreme, the view of the supremacy of ritual or discipline. And so so these five types of views that we have just seen, they are afflictive in the sense that they belong to the root afflictive emotions, because these 5 beliefs are disturbed discriminations. They are not characterized as peaceful states of mind. They do not lead to peaceful states of mind, but when we hold these beliefs, that disturbs the mind further, it leads to further afflictive emotions, it's disturbing our minds rather than being a correct kind of view or belief that would be the right discrimination and correct correct that would lead to the correct discrimination. So here these are really disturbing and coarse kinds of views that are disturbing the mind, and therefore they belong to the coarse or the 6 root disturbing emotions. That's
tawa ngadang tamin ngate zamyun juo teles tawa ngasna jigso tawa dene tanda churimdo chu chong patula ngadere ane tamin ngasna dige thokla toda marik docha khongdong ngajal thesumsin otinjo ngawotela tamin ngas di domne chabi nyumong chu lagyos juo teles tawa chosen dang churim to chu chosen de chosen nibo de dang ane lokta dang techum de xie de kundang yin se dang ji henje do mewa che sardo da marang zo ge loi pa da sha wa do kunda do ji da de de
chosen ni dang tetsom
den lokta chosen lokta na duru do pejan nam dang na chosen ni dang lokta techum xie de kundang yin xin kunda yin xin ane lama dhukde la yang kunda dang tenje nyi dhokde le zye yus sunga dhido.
Tamani kundak dang lengye
니 yes
Tamani kanda kande?
tama lakma jogla
Lagma tum.
lakma jogla kunda dang henje tende ni tama tsiya yo lakma jogo de la ne kunda ge cha yo de henje ge cha yo le ke cha redu
Nan kunda rang yimba de chokse ni dang lokta dang techom.
las redu
Yes. Okay. So we have seen now the root afflictive emotions, and we can look at this in light of 5 root afflictive emotions that are not views and 5 root afflictive emotions that are views, making a number of 10 root afflictive emotions. And these can be categorized in terms of being imputed or natural. Or just like, naturally arising. Imputed afflictive emotions that come through imputation refer to those that are created artificially. And those are those 2 graspings to supremacy and also perverted view and doubt. Those are created artificially on top of one's natural beings. And then the other 6, which were then ignorance, attachment, anger, arrogance, and also the belief in the transitory collections and the extreme views, those arise without intellectual imputation. So those arise without imputing or they can be categorized as either, like there can be 2 types of them. To repeat myself now clearly. So we have the 10 root afflictive emotions, 5 other non-views, 5 other views. And all of these can be categorized in terms of imputation, intellectual imputation, intellectual creation, or naturally arising. And 4 are entirely imputed. Those are the 2 views of supremacy. Then the perverted views and the doubt. Those are created intellectually. All other 6 root afflictive emotions, so ignorance, attachment, anger, arrogance, the view in the transitory collections, and the extreme views, those are naturally arising. They do not, they're not intellectually, or they can be intellectually imputed, so through intellectual engagement, or naturally arising. They can be categorized, they can be divided into 2 ways that they arise. So the 6 can be either intellectually